I'm glad you
show. Are you ready for it? Okay, we saw you over the weekend.
That's right. Now, here's something as we look right here. Notice there's a beautiful flower arrangement here. Behind it, Katie has hidden her coffee tankard, which she actually brought from Washington,
Steve
D.C.
is very impressed that I bring my own coffee mug. It keeps it hot the
200
entire
miles.
show. It's great. It's a traveling mug. They call them that.
Here's mine. Here's Katie's. Brian, where's yours?
It's coming soon. I think we're brewing as we speak. Meanwhile, there's so much to talk about in terms of immigration, in terms of elections and more.
Well, because the midterm elections are far from over. Democratic election officials in Florida now being sued by current Florida Governor Rick Scott, accusing them of trying to steal his election to the U.S. Senate.
And that's not the only race hitting a snag. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. with the contests around the country still yet to be called. Griff.
Good morning, guys. Here we go again to the nation's recount capital of Florida. Governor Rick Scott's lead over incumbent Senator Bill Nelson appears to be narrowing. Out of 8 million votes, Scott leads by less than 18,000 votes, or 0.22%. And as Nelson gears up for a fight, Scott is suing the Democratic election supervisors in Broward and Palm Beach counties, accusing them of rampant fraud and calling on the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate.
Yeah, we won. I'm going to be the U.S. Senator. I'm going to fight this all the way. We're going to do everything we can. We're looking at every legal remedy we can exercise. We're going to fight this, and we're going to win this.
Now, under Florida law, any race with a margin of 0.5% or less automatically goes to a recount. Attorney Mark Elias, now representing Nelson, said this. He says, "We're doing this not just because it's automatic, but we're doing it to win." And in the race for governor there, also in the razor-thin majority, recount territory rather, Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis leads Democratic Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum by more than 36,000 votes, or 0.4%, 44%. Gillum, who conceded the race to DeSantis on Tuesday night, indicated through his lawyers that they are also gearing up for a fight. Now, Florida has 67 counties. They all have until noon tomorrow to submit their unofficial vote totals. One thing's for sure, it's good to be an attorney for election law in Florida in November, guys.
Yeah, all right, thanks, Griff. Yeah, you're not kidding, especially if you're Mark Elias. Mark Elias comes in to parachute in, says he's out to win an election for Nelson. Well, isn't that nice? Mark Elias, the same one for Perkins Coie, the same one that hired Fusion GPS, who hired Christopher Steele. Are there any other organizations left in Florida? Is it all about Mark Elias again?
And there are reportedly a number of Democratic attorneys going to Florida for this fight, as you know, many are pointing out in terms of the recount. Here we go.
Well, here's the thing, and this is the reason that Rick Scott has sued Palm Beach and Broward County. Suddenly, mysteriously, apparently, Broward County is finding more ballots.
All of a sudden.
How is that? And as Griff just said, you know, of the 8 million votes cast in Florida over the last month or so with early voting, and of course on Tuesday, they are currently just about 17,000 votes apart. And what is curious as well is that apparently 24,700 voted for governor in Florida in that county, but did not vote for Senate.
Yeah.
So in other words, they thought, okay, I'm going to vote for the Gillum or DeSantis race, but I'm not going to vote in the Scott and Nelson race.
Do you know why? They're saying that the Senate ballot punch, whatever they're using, was down at the bottom of the ballot. And they're going to sue because they don't like the way that they thought the ballot was unfair to the voter. Well, that's what they're going to find some type of legal remedy for.
Well, while Rick Scott has issued this lawsuit, President Donald Trump is also paying attention to this and tweeting, law enforcement is looking into another big corruption scandal having to do with election fraud in Broward and Palm Beach. Florida voted for Rick Scott. So he, I assume, has contacted the Department of Justice and their elections attorneys over there to look into what is going on in Florida.
Right. I believe he's called in the Florida police to do just that, the highway patrol, etc. Rick Scott, in his lawsuits, actually singled out Brenda Snipes, who is the County Board of Supervisors head down there in Broward County. And Marco Rubio said, look, she has and her office have a history of not doing the right thing when it comes to counting votes. Watch.
Their words, they held a press conference and said that we're not here to just have a recount, we're here to win. And look, we have procedures in the law for close elections and recounts. I have no problem with any of that. My problem is this is focused on 2 counties and in particular 1 county. So let me use an example. Bay County, Florida, where Panama City is, was hit by a Category 4 hurricane about 4 weeks to the day of this election. They were without power. They did all their ballots, submitted them on time. They were done basically on election night. Problem number 2 is we don't know how many votes they have, and neither do they. Either they don't know or they won't tell anybody how many ballots are left to count, and so forth.
Senator Rubio, in a series of tweets yesterday, said the courts found that they improperly handled votes, and the courts found they destroyed ballots in 2016 in violation of state law and federal law. And so you've got that as a background as they are mysteriously finding more votes.
And the other issue here in terms of the legal problem is the early voting numbers that were in on Sunday they're all supposed to be voted by Tuesday counted by on Tuesday by
Within
Florida
30
law
minutes
standards. And yet here we are getting to the weekend, and those early totals are still being counted in Broward County.
They were busy.
You're the governor and you're the
Very
senator.
busy.
You have some power in Florida. And when you see Marco Rubio that exercised, he is not known as a firebrand or a sensationalist. He really sees something going very, very wrong. The Fox gave Scott this win. DeSantis has the win, too. We do not know if Gilliam's going to rescind his concession speech and go back, but it's not even up to Gillum. If it's so close, they had to do a machine.
It's automatic.
And then it goes after the machine. If it's so close, they go by hand.
Yeah,
so we could be looking at a couple of weeks.
Yeah, just for the numbers on the recounting in Florida, if 2 candidates are within 0.5 points of each other, it triggers an automatic machine count.
Right.
And with a margin of 0.25 points, it is a hand recount.
Right. And go back to 2001, the difference when it came to Gore versus Bush, it was just, 500 votes? Here we're talking tens of thousands, but nonetheless, some mystery revolving around
They cut it in half since Election Day. I don't know what's going on. Meanwhile, the President of the United States knows that the caravan's getting closer. There's another one behind that, another one behind that. He also knows that 1,000 are coming to our border on a daily basis, and they're all claiming some form of amnesty, trying to get in without going trying to get in without going through the normal immigration process. So he's taken action.
Yep. The Department of Justice and Homeland Security going to look at new measures that if you enter the country illegally, in other words, if you enter between one of the ports, you know where the ports are, that's where the guards are. If you enter the country illegally, you cannot ask for asylum. Apparently, the rule change is expected to be published in the Federal Register later today. And of course, you can expect quick legal challenges.
Yeah, so the White House has released some numbers yesterday, and they're making the point that they're trying to cut down on people crossing the border at every single place
in
of
the
the border and just turning themselves into Customs and Border Protection and Border Patrol and claiming asylum. They're hoping that this will be a more orderly process so they can siphon out those who truly need humanitarian aid and asylum at these ports from the people who don't, based on the numbers of asylum cases that get thrown out.
The way I understand it is under these current changes, if this is indeed upheld, and most legal experts say this executive order is going to do that, under the changes, migrants who cross illegally would be ineligible for asylum, but they could still be spared from deportation by qualifying for a lesser status known as withholding of removal, but the original status would prevent them from ever becoming naturalized citizens, going through the green card process. So there is still something in there that they could still get in for, but this is also supposed to be a deterrent. Spread the word, Central and South America, as even though things aren't great there. They've never been great there. It's not that things are bad now. The signal was sent to those areas, not to Mexico, that it's okay to come in. And that's happened since a Senator Feinstein-sponsored law passed in 2008 and passed in 2009. You got to send the message back. It's not okay. But the UN is actually sending buses to get these caravans up to Mexico City. How unbelievable is that?
It's very simple now. If you want to claim asylum, simply go
to a
one
port
of the ports.
Exactly.
And they all know where the ports are. I was talking to Griff the other day, the producer, A.J. Hall, who traveled on the caravan with Griff. He said about half the people in the caravan have cell phones, so they know exactly
what's going on. They're getting those alerts just like we are.
All right. Meanwhile, speaking of alerts, a Fox News alert. New alarming clues as investigators piece together why a former Marine stormed that California bar and killed 12 people.
All right, this is terrifying nude video. Paints a dark picture of what exactly happened the moment shots rang out.
Jonathan Hunt is live in Thousand Oaks, California with the latest. Jonathan.
Katie, Brian, Steve, good morning to all of you. It is a very disturbing cell phone video that we have seen overnight, and it gives a very real glimpse into the fear and panic felt by customers at the Borderline Bar and Grill late Wednesday evening. Watch and listen here. Now, 150 to 200 customers were in the bar at the time when 28-year-old Ian David Long burst in wearing all black and firing at will at anybody who crossed his path. Investigators tell us he was a U.S. Marine Corps veteran who had served combat duty in Afghanistan. He has apparently suffered over recent years with mental health issues. That, though, in itself does not provide a motive. But FBI investigators said they will keep trying to find out what drove him. Listen here.
It would be premature for me to speculate on the motivation, but I can assure you that we will follow all the leads that are developed through witness interviews, evidence recovery, the forensic evidence, any digital media that we recover, and we will be sure to paint a picture of the state of mind of the subject and do our best to identify a motivation.
And we have now learned the names of most of the victims. They include one man who apparently survived the Las Vegas shooting massacre in October 2017 at that country music concert there, only, according to his mother, to die at a country music bar here. Steve, Brian, Katie.
All right, Adam, thank you very much.
All right, 12 minutes down after the hour.
I was thinking of Adam Housley because his niece died in that yesterday.
Yeah, his brother's daughter, tragically. Meanwhile, 12 minutes after the hour. Hey, Jillian.
Another story out of California, so let's get you caught up on this. A raging wildfire burning out of control overnight, forcing 40,000 people to evacuate their homes in Northern California.
Heavenly Father, please help us. Please help us to be safe.
Wow, that video is intense. The campfire burning 20,000 acres, injuring 2 firefighters in just one day. The entire town of Paradise, home to 27,000 people, has been lost. Thousands had to flee on foot. Nearly 1,000 homes and buildings have been destroyed so far. We'll keep you updated. And just hours from now, President Trump is heading to Paris. He is set to meet with world leaders as they mark 100 years since the end of World War I. The First Lady will join him on the 3-day trip. The president says he will not meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin there. The two are expected to sit down at the G20 summit in Argentina at the end of the month. I'll send it back to you.
All right.
Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you very much, Jill. Meanwhile, the Democrats took the House on Tuesday, but it wasn't the blue wave they were predicting. Our next guest says it's one of 4 signs that President Trump could be reelected in 2020.
And Antifa targeting Tucker Carlson, vandalizing his house while his wife was alone, had to hide in the pantry. This morning, Tucker is firing back. Instead of a blue wave, it's more of arguably kind of a trickle. Republicans losing fewer House seats in this midterm election, 28th, than Democrats did under Barack Obama in 2010 when they lost 63, and Bill Clinton when they lost quite just under that. So are there signs from the midterm election that Trump could win easier than he did in 2016 in 2020? Let's ask Washington Examiner columnist Kristen Soltis Anderson. Kristen, you knocked it down to 4 signs that Trump could win in 2020. First off, number 1, his ability to turn out the base. We pretty much saw that, didn't we?
Yeah, typically in these midterms, incumbent presidents have a challenge convincing their voters to think about them as, hey, my name is on the ballot. Even though it's not there, even though you can't check a box that says I'm voting for Trump, turn out to support me. This was something that Barack Obama was never really able to do. Now, he was able to win re-election, but both of his midterms were really bad for Democrats because his base was really about him and not the party. Donald Trump has persuaded his base that, look, you've got to turn out even when I'm not on the ballot, which portends good things for thinking, will he be able to get his base back 2 years from now?
Yeah, you're not optimistic he can get suburbs, but I think by little adjustments, at least he has a shot at doing better than he did this time. Ohio and Florida still look winnable. Well, Ohio, they have a governor there that's a Republican again, and it looks like they have one, we thought, in Florida too. You like what you saw in those two key states?
Yeah, I think especially, if you take a look at Ohio, they reelected their Democratic senator. So you can still argue that Ohio is a swing state. But in the last presidential election, Ohio and Texas voted about the same, almost 10 points for Donald Trump. Now, whether that says more about is Texas becoming a swing state or is Ohio pretty solidly red, I think the president can think of Ohio as a fairly safe seat, which really helps the Electoral College math.
All right, Kristen, you also say the Dems have some ownership now. They're no longer out on the sideline. They're in the game because they have the House.
That's right. So now, unlike heading into this midterm when you have a lot of Americans who feel things are on the wrong track, even if they may like the president a little, if they just want change, now change can also mean throwing out the Democrats again. They control one of the chambers. He may also be able to cut some of these Chuck and Nancy deals, or I guess just Nancy deals. Chuck did not take control of the Senate. But, trying to show that he's more bipartisan, whether that gives him an opportunity to have a leg up with independents over a Democratic challenger remains to be seen.
Yeah, we'll have a year in which, hypothetically, you would think they might be able to get something done, and then they'll go back into their corners in election mode. Keep in mind, Barack Obama lost 63 seats, Bill Clinton 54 in his first midterm. They both went on to re-election. Great 4 points, and as the last one was, it could have been worse. Kristen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, coming up straight ahead, the migrant caravan set to get back on the road as they march to the United States of America. I believe that's where we are. So what does the Trump administration's new asylum crackdown mean for them? The new executive order, we'll discuss it. And America may be divided over the midterms, but we can still come together for some football. Pete Hegseth talks to tailgaters at Heinz Field. Yep, where Pittsburgh plays tackle football. That's coming up.
Buddy, you're a young man, hard man, shouting in the street. You're gonna take on the world someday. Yes?
All right, here's some quick headlines. Let's get started. More trouble with the elections. The race for Georgia governor turning into a battle after the polls closed. Democrat Stacey Abrams refusing to concede to Republican Brian Kemp. Kemp resigning as Georgia's Secretary of State after declaring victory. So he's going to start being governor. Abrams called for his resignation over his role in overseeing the state election. That's as Attorney General. Her campaign is prepping a lawsuit over uncounted absentee ballots. What a mess. He currently is leading, but the race has not been called. He's got over 50%. And the Senate race in Arizona is still up in the air. Listen to this. Overnight, Democrat Kyrsten Sinema barely pulling ahead of Republican Martha McSally, who's been leading all along. But election officials say they still have 400,000 votes to count. Unbelievable. And they're still just thousands apart. Stephen Katie.
All right, Brian, thank you. The migrant caravan in Mexico marching toward the United States. The caravan, now in the thousands, has left Mexico City on foot after a failed request for more buses to ferry them to the U.S. southern border.
This is the Trump administration plans to roll out tough new rules for asylum claims.
Here to weigh in from San Diego, California, is radio talk show host Mike Slater. Mike, what do you make of this new proposal by the administration where if you cross into the country illegally, in other words, not at a port, they will not allow you to claim asylum?
Absolute common sense has to happen. Over the years, I've talked to border agents here in San Diego that say they feel like nothing more than a glorified Walmart welcoming crew. Think of this craziness. Someone comes across the border illegally, and instead of trying to avoid the Border Patrol, they run to the Border Patrol. They wave down the Border Patrol.
That's right.
Come rescue us. The Border Patrol picks them up and drops them off at the San Ysidro, it's the trolley stop on our side of the border, and says, hey, see you later, come back in a year or so for your trial. That's insane. That has to stop. And all I'm calling for, and all the people of San Diego are calling for, is order at the border. Not cut it off totally, order at the border. And that's what Trump's policy does. It's great.
Well, we want to get to a city up north. You're down south in San Diego and Southern California, but up in San Francisco, they just voted to implement a new tax on businesses. They say will go to fund the homeless population. They already spend $250,000 to $300 million per year. They're going to double that with this new tax. A lot of people are saying it's unfair, including Jack Dorsey, who is in charge of Twitter. What is your response to San Diego raising taxes on the job creators?
Yeah, well, listen, it's very simple. If you tax something, you get less of it. If you subsidize something, you get more of it. So in this case, we're taxing businesses, so you're going to get less economic growth, and you're subsidizing homelessness, so you're going to end up getting more homelessness. Now, the reason that this affects the rest of the country is it's becoming pretty oppressive to live in California with the highest taxes, like all the taxes, the highest taxes in the country. So people are leaving, businesses are leaving California, and they're moving to places like Texas. The problem is they're taking the same failed policies with them to Texas, and they're going to screw up Texas just like they've screwed up California. So we were just talking about the migrant caravan coming from the south, coming from Mexico. I'm here to tell the rest of the country there's a caravan coming from the west, and it's full of disgruntled Californians who haven't learned their lesson, and they're coming to invade your red state and turn it blue. So we need to build another wall to keep all the Californians out of Texas and Georgia.
Well, what about you? Do you get to go to Texas?
I'm here for the fight now in California, right? Someone's got to stay behind.
You're there for the weather.
That too.
With this particular initiative, as you know, Mike, it has been the Chamber of Commerce and Twitter. They've teamed up against the largest employer in San Francisco, which is Salesforce. Jack Dorsey, at Jack, as he's known at Twitter, he tweeted this out. We're happy to pay our taxes. We just want to be treated fairly with respect to our peer companies, many of whom are 2 to 10 times larger than us. Otherwise, we don't know how to practically grow in the city. That's heartbreaking for us as we love San Francisco and want to continue to help build it. So there you've got one of the biggest influencers in the world saying this is a bad idea.
Well, again, it's saying that they're going to move somewhere else, right? There's a lot of reasons for homelessness, right? And we can talk about that another day. But what's frustrating is when you have politicians who come up with the same, first of all, one-size-fits-all solution, which is just to take homeless people, put them behind a door without addressing the root causes of it, but also just to tax and spend more money. That's the solution to every single problem is to tax and spend more money. And Gavin Newsom, who was the mayor of San Francisco for a long time, he's now the governor of California, and he's going to enact these same tax and spend policies across the entire state. And I guarantee you, homelessness gets worse in California.
Well, proponents of the proposition say that it will provide 1,000 temporary shelter beds, 4,000 households off the streets into affordable housing, whatever that means, and mental health care for 4,500 individuals. So we'll see if the additional $300 million from these companies actually goes to solve the homeless problem.
You've got so much to talk about today on your radio show. Mike Slater, thank you very much for joining us from the beautiful city of San Diego. All right, straight ahead on this Friday, Antifa targeted our own Tucker Carlson, vandalized his house while his wife was home alone. This morning, Tucker firing back.
And what are football fans saying about the midterms? Pete Hegseth went to Heinz Field to talk politics with tailgaters.
I watched the election like I was watching a Super Bowl.
What is the issue that matters the most to you? Business, economy, security, build the wall, please.
More from those fans up next.
But first, happy birthday to Nick Lachey. You may remember him from the 90s boy band 98 Degrees. Nick has 45 candles on his cake today. And tell you I don't love you. It's the hardest.
Outside your home, and we want you to know we know where you sleep at night.
Mailbox,
we know where you sleep at night.
We know where you sleep at night.
Racist scumbags, leave town. Racist scumbags, leave town.
Do you believe this? That happened in Washington, D.C., and it happened 2 nights ago. While Tucker was preparing to do his show, the Antifa put about 15 to 30 outside his house, dressed in all black. Not only did they spray paint his driveway and put a big A there, they made those horrific chants, and then they tried to break down his door. His wife quickly called the cops, called his brother, and then went into the pantry, and she had every reason to be worried about her own safety.
Yeah, she thought it was a home invasion. She didn't realize that it was they were being targeted. I read online it was perhaps the group Smash Racism DC, and Tucker has made it very clear. Look, they weren't protesting; they were threatening me and my family.
I think that clarification is very important. The protesting thing has been made. If they're in the street, that's protest. But when you're on private property, breaking in someone's door, that's actually a violent trespass. And that's exactly what they were doing, which is why the police are looking into it.
Katie, about 2 weeks ago, he needed these nights off. It had nothing to do with the fact that there were protests the night before. So even though Tucker's on vacation, he called into his show.
What's it like to find out that your wife is hiding in the pantry because people are threatening her? I mean, it's upsetting. I've characterized the Antifa people and people like them as protesters, but they're not. I mean, they weren't protesting anything. They weren't trying to change my mind or advocate for a position. They were threatening my family to get me to stop talking. Our conversation publicly has been hijacked by extremists like this, and I worry that if we don't stand up to them and say, I'm sorry, this is not allowed. You can't threaten people into silence. The rest of us are very passive in the face of this. I think one of the people screaming at my wife last night has been a guest on our show. I can't prove that. We're going to find out. If you have something to say, you're always welcome to come back on and say it. He doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to convince you. He wants to scare you into shutting up.
So you believe that? They think they know at least one of the people, which means would lead to the next 14. This is being looked at as a hate crime for the first time. I think that's interesting. Also, the fact is, his show, more than any other show, opens up with opposite opinion more than any other show on television. He welcomes other opinions. He goes, this is what I think. Now meet my guest who thinks I'm crazy. Every single night.
The fact that Tucker thinks one of the people who was at his home either breaking in the door or threatening his wife was on his show proves the point that Tucker is the tolerant one in this situation who wants to have a real debate, and these people clearly don't, which is what the point he made on his show last night.
The CEO of Fox News and the president of News, Suzanne Scott, and Jay Wallace put out this statement. The incident that took place at Tucker's home last night was reprehensible. The violent threats and intimidation tactics toward him and his family are completely unacceptable. We as a nation have become far too intolerant of different points of view. Recent events across our country clearly highlight the need for a more civil, respectful, and inclusive national conversation. Those of us in the media and in politics bear a special obligation to all Americans to find common ground. There is common ground. It's not just people at Fox denouncing this. It's Fox rivals. It's all sorts of people. Stephen Colbert put out a statement. Fighting Tucker Carlson's ideas is an American right. Targeting his home and terrorizing his family is an act of monstrous cowardice. Obviously, don't do this, but also take no pleasure in it happening. Feeding monsters just makes more monsters.
It hurts your case. It galvanizes people who normally would be in your corner or share your beliefs against you because you just now want violence, you went through intimidation, you went to scare tactics. I don't know if you've noticed, but most of the people that believe something, this works against you trying to convince them. So you think Tucker's going to come out on when he comes back on Monday and say, oh, I decided to pull back and stop voicing my views?
No, Tucker's going to go full bear, and he's going to continue to express his ideas, and he's also going to continue to invite people like Antifa and those who disagree with him to have that debate. The door is always welcome. It's up to them to take it, and there have to be consequences for people who violently break in doors to intimidate family members of people who are simply having a political debate.
I sense that they're getting paid. I think all these protests that are all of a sudden pushing for Jeff Sessions and are outside Tucker Carlson's house are getting a paycheck to do just that.
Well, we don't know that, but there is an investigation, open investigation. The D.C. cops are looking at a suspected hate crime. Right. We will keep you posted.
Let's pat down the guy in black outfits who refuses to show their face and find out.
Yeah.
All right, 21 minutes before the top of the hour, and Jillian joins us with a developing story.
That's right. Good morning. Following a number of stories, including this, the search for a 13-year-old girl missing since Monday is intensifying. The FBI releasing new surveillance video of a man they want to question seen walking near Hanya Aguilar's North Carolina home around the time she was taken. Authorities finding the stolen SUV used to kidnap her abandoned in nearby woods. Witnesses say she was forced into the vehicle after being snatched from her yard. Her mother keeping faith she will be found safe. Dramatic video showing police rescuing an unconscious man from a burning car. Just stop what you're doing and watch this video.
Out of the car, hey, get up, get out of the car. Your car's on fire, bro.
The New Jersey State Troopers pulling the driver out before the car was fully engulfed in flames, as you can see there. They say he fell asleep at the wheel and hit a guardrail. Luckily, no one was hurt. Michelle Obama blasting President Trump in her new memoir. The former First Lady writing she tried to, quote, block it all out after learning the current president would replace her husband in the Oval Office. Becoming is due out next week. The memoir is part of a joint book deal with former President Barack Obama, believed to be worth tens of millions of dollars. Let's look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
New book coming to the bookstore.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Jillian.
Meanwhile, I saw Janice Steen on an earlier show. Is she working with us today, too?
I think there she is. She's braving the cold out there.
It is a little bit chilly, but I'm warming up with my friends here. Where are you from? What are your names? Where are you from?
I'm Kathy.
And?
Larry.
Where are you from?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. What is this? Celebrating 45 years. Fantastic. I always like to ask, what is the secret to a long-lasting relationship?
Listen.
Oh, very nice. So he's awesome. Are you doing anything fun today?
Walk around New York.
Nice.
Yeah.
What part of Arkansas?
Malvern.
Anything exciting about Malvern if I go there?
We have beautiful lakes
Brick
and river.
capital of the world.
Brick capital of the world.
Biggest brick plant in the world at one time.
I love it.
Acme Brick.
Real quick, let's go to the maps really quick. I just want to show you that cold front that's moving through the eastern third of the country. And we have freeze advisories all the way down south, even Arkansas, my friends. So we got to keep warm. There's that cold front moving across the eastern third, bringing some snow across the Great Lakes and a little more rain for the northeast. All right, big hugs. Can I have a hug?
Yes.
Oh, you guys are great. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want to say hi to Katie and Steve and Brian? Wave to
Hi,
them.
Katie, Steve.
Hey, guys.
Watch you every day, bud.
Aww.
Enjoy New York.
Thank you. Happy anniversary.
That's one way to stay warm. Hug. Yeah.
Hug.
Hug a weather
And we're in
person.
Arkansas's sweatshirt.
Yep. All right, straight ahead on this Friday, the FDA has approved a controversial new opioid 10 times stronger than fentanyl. Didn't know that was possible. The powerful drug is meant for our military, but what does it mean for the opioid crisis here at home? Dr. Nicole Saphier on deck with that coming up next.
I see her in the distance. Plus, 2 groups are helping military families reunite this Veterans Day weekend. Find out how you can help ahead.
Hope you're having a good Friday morning. Welcome back to some quick headlines. You could soon bring a friend with you to the gate without a boarding pass at one airport anyway. Seattle Tacoma Airport testing out a new program allowing visitors past security without a ticket if TSA approves. The program will run through December 14th and could be made permanent. Visitors can apply online. And how about this? A big-time European coffee chain is brewing lots of outrage online. Costa Coffee is allowing employees to refuse to serve coffee to anyone under 16 years old. They can even ask them for ID. The company says it doesn't encourage kids to drink caffeine. There you have it, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Julian. Well, a controversial new opioid getting the green light from the FDA.
It's 1,000 times more potent than morphine, 10 times stronger than fentanyl, and the FDA says it's releasing the drug specifically to help our military on the battlefield.
But what does that mean for the opioid crisis here in the United States? Here to weigh in is our new Fox News medical contributor, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Welcome to the family.
Thank you. Thank you. They put a ring on it, and I accepted. So super happy to be here, be a part of the family.
Okay, so this first story, this new super opioid meant for the battlefield, people who are really hurt, give it to them right there. It's in tablet form, but...
So this new medication, it's small, but it's mighty. But the interesting thing about this, you already mentioned it can be up to 1,000 times more powerful than morphine, but it's a sublingual dissolvable tablet, which is crucial in military. You know, since the Civil War era, morphine's been on the battlefield. And when we've had 51,000 soldiers, U.S. soldiers injured in Afghanistan in the last 10 years, specifically from blast injuries, we need pain control out on the battlefield. What was happening, they had these vials and they were injecting immediately, but it wasn't necessarily working that well. Now we have these dissolvable tablets that they're going to just be able to put in someone's mouth, and it gets right into their system, gives them immediate pain control. And by the way, fast, immediate pain control on the battlefield has less of a chance of having PTSD in the long run for those injured. So in that sense, absolutely, I like this idea. Most people would think we need a new opioid, like we need a hole in the head, and I get that because we still haven't gotten a grip on our opioid crisis. So when you can get a bag of heroin on the street for $5, but you still have to pay anywhere from $150 to $1,500 for the reversal medication, unless we can narrow that, we're not tipping the balance. So we need to continue making sure that we are treating those that are addicted, while also making sure that we provide adequate pain control for people in America.
So for people who hear this headline about a new opioid and get concerned about this contributing to the crisis, can you talk about what's driving the crisis and why this may not be part of it just as a result of how it's being used?
The crisis has gotten to where we are multifactorial over multiple decades. It is poor prescribing, a lot because physicians really weren't educated. It was pushed by pharmaceutical companies. It was pushed by the insurance industries because it was cheap. And then unfortunately people were getting addicted. And it's an easy find on the street. And so it has fueled, and here we are.
All right, Dr. Saphier, thank you very much for
giving us a
heads up on this.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Republican Mike DeWine just won the Ohio governor's race thanks to support from President Trump. So what does he plan to do once he's in office? The governor-elect, who looks exactly like that picture, joins us live next hour.
Plus, 2 groups are helping military families reunite with veterans this weekend. Find out how you can help up next.
Hope you're having a good Friday morning. Welcome back to some quick headlines. You could soon bring a friend with you to the gate without a boarding pass at one airport anyway. Seattle Tacoma Airport testing out a new program allowing visitors past security without a ticket if TSA approves. The program will run through December 14th and could be made permanent. Visitors can apply online. And how about this? A big-time European coffee chain is brewing lots of outrage online. Costa Coffee is allowing employees to refuse to serve coffee to anyone under 16 years old. They can even ask them for ID. The company says it doesn't encourage kids to drink caffeine. There you have it, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Julian. Well, a controversial new opioid getting the green light from the FDA.
It's 1,000 times more potent than morphine, 10 times stronger than fentanyl, and the FDA says it's releasing the drug specifically to help our military on the battlefield.
But what does that mean for the opioid crisis here in the United States? Here to weigh in is our new Fox News medical contributor, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Welcome to the family.
Thank you. They put a ring on it, and I accepted. So super happy to be here, be a part of the family.
Okay, so this first story, this new super opioid meant for the battlefield, people who are really hurt, give it to them right there. It's in tablet form, but
So this new medication, it's small, but it's mighty. But the interesting thing about this, you already mentioned it can be up to 1,000 times more powerful than morphine, but it's a sublingual dissolvable tablet, which is crucial in military. You know, since the Civil War era, morphine's been on the battlefield. And when we've had 51,000 soldiers, U.S. soldiers injured in Afghanistan in the last 10 years, specifically from blast injuries, we need pain control out on the battlefield. What was happening, they had these vials and they were injecting immediately, but it wasn't necessarily working that well. Now we have these dissolvable tablets that they're going to just be able to put in someone's mouth, and it gets right into their system, gives them immediate pain control. And by the way, fast, immediate pain control on the battlefield has less of a chance of having PTSD in the long run for those injured. So in that sense, absolutely, I like this idea. Most people would think we need a new opioid, like we need a hole in the head, and I get that because we still haven't gotten a grip on our opioid crisis. So when you can get a bag of heroin on the street for $5, but you still have to pay anywhere from $150 to $1,500 for the reversal medication, unless we can narrow that, we're not tipping the balance. So we need to continue making sure that we are treating those that are addicted, while also making sure that we provide adequate pain control for people in America.
So for people who hear this headline about a new opioid and get concerned about this contributing to the crisis, can you talk about what's driving the crisis and why this may not be part of it just as a result of how it's being used?
The crisis has gotten to where we are multifactorial over multiple decades. It is poor prescribing, a lot because physicians really weren't educated. It was pushed by pharmaceutical companies. It was pushed by the insurance industries because it was cheap. And then unfortunately people were getting addicted. And it's an easy find on the street. And so it has fueled, and here we are.
All right, Dr. Saphier, thank you very much for
giving us a
heads up on this.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Republican Mike DeWine just won the Ohio governor's race thanks to support from President Trump. So what does he plan to do once he's in office? The governor-elect, who looks exactly like that picture, joins us live next hour.
Plus, 2 groups are helping military families reunite the veterans this weekend. Find out how you can help up next.
Hope you're having a good Friday morning. Welcome back to some quick headlines. You could soon bring a friend with you to the gate without a boarding pass at one airport anyway. Seattle Tacoma Airport testing out a new program allowing visitors past security without a ticket if TSA approves. The program will run through December 14th and could be made permanent. Visitors can apply online. And how about this? A big-time European coffee chain is brewing lots of outrage online. Costa Coffee is allowing employees to refuse to serve coffee to anyone under 16 years old. They can even ask them for ID. The company says it doesn't encourage kids to drink caffeine. There you have it, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Julian. Well, a controversial new opioid getting the green light from the FDA.
It's 1,000 times more potent than morphine, 10 times stronger than fentanyl, and the FDA says it's releasing the drug specifically to help our military on the battlefield.
But what does that mean for the opioid crisis here in the United States? Here to weigh in is our new Fox News medical contributor, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Welcome to the family.
Thank you. Thank you. They put a ring on it, and I accepted. So super happy to be here, be a part of the family.
Okay, so this first story, this new super opioid meant for the battlefield, people who are really hurt, give it to them right there. It's in tablet form. But